Hey everyone, welcome back to Hackers and Hooks. This week we have Rich Bates with us. What happens when a client just doesn't follow your recommendations even after they've been attacked? My name is Nick Gibson, and today I have Rich Bates, and I'd love to have him do his intro so I'm not doing it injustice.
Sure. Thanks, Nick. Hey, my name's Rich Bates. I'm the proprietor of the Pridwin Advisory. Our main focus is to help the small and medium-sized business get through the wonderfulness of the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification program, but we also offer general cybersecurity for the small and medium-sized business in an advisory role. Once we come up with a plan and that sort of thing, we hand it over to people like Nick to actually do the implementation.
Yes. So Rich and I have been working together for a little bit now. What we've had both have had experiences with clients that just don't take our recommendations, even though the numbers and the data and everything is screaming at them right in the face. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing that clients just aren't getting?
I think that what they're not getting is they look at, oh, we've had a breach and that's horrible and that's terrible, but they don't look at the secondary and the tertiary effects of that breach. In today's, connected world, you can't keep stuff like that a secret. So you're not really looking at just financial loss or your business being down for a couple days or something like that. You're also looking at reputational loss. And what I tie all that back to is that, especially in the small, medium sized business, and let's take the government contractor out of the picture for the moment. They're a whole different beast. But just your general commercial, small, medium sized business, they are spending rightly so much time on their business that they don't sit down and do some of the basic or have somebody do some of the basic blocking and tackling that every business needs. I'll give you a real quick example. I was working with a pretty big company and asked them, very specifically, I said, where's your risk registry? And they looked at me and said, our what? This company's been in business for 12 years. I was like, how do you prioritize what it is you're going to fix and what it is you're not going to fix? So I think that that's it, is they don't see as far down the road as you and I see.
That's true. Do you think it's also technical inability, like they're just frozen because there's so many options that they don't know what to choose?
Yeah, I think that one of the big problems is that, they either they get the wrong vendor or they try to DIY it or something like that, and they just see everything that they think they should be taking care of, and like you said, they freeze up. And one of the things I try to tell folks is let's not reinvent the wheel. I mean, not only is the wheel out there, the whole vehicle's been built. There are what? At least there are five, for example, cybersecurity frameworks that pop into my mind. And my favorite is 800-171, but there's also CSF and stuff like that. But if you tell the small business, just follow this, you're going to get deer in the headlights. They're going to wander off and you'll never hear from them again. What you've got to do is lead them down the path of, no, we can tailor this for you. We can take this elephant and, phase it down into a mouse and that's all you really need. So, and of course the small and medium-sized businesses, when they see stuff like this, if you really look deep into their eyes, what you're seeing are dollar signs that, oh man, this is going to cost money. So I think that those are the two big things are really budget and scope.
I've recently a client that had a breach and we investigated and cleaned it up and we had a list of recommendations for them to do and they simply never did them. 2, 3 months goes by and the recommendations are still on the to-do list and they're still vulnerable for the same things. What do you say to those types of clients that are out there not prioritizing it or if they don't feel like it's a priority?
Well, I think that what they don't understand is that once they do get breached, they've got a target on their back. Hackers like all criminals are basically lazy. They're not going to go out and poke at the Lockheed Martins and the Raytheons and those folks unless they have the resources and now with the automated resources to do it. They're going to keep going back to the same well every time because they know your landscape, they know your weaknesses, and they've probably, in that first breach, they have probably mapped out other vulnerabilities other than the one they used. If they didn't, go as far as or even went as far as to leave a little present behind let them walk in without even half the effort the next time. So
Yes.
there's a lot of education and that has to happen.
Yes. What do you find is the best way to do that education? Eh, I say this to frame it as, is current security education enough? How we do it today? Is that enough, do you think, for these small businesses?
No, because one of education, or as we call it in the government world, awareness and training and such like that, that's part of a whole cyber culture. And cyber culture, even in the larges, is ignored a lot of the time. And it's one of those things, you always hear this phrase, it can't be sprinkled on, it has to be baked in. And by that, I mean, there are too many folks have the approach to cybersecurity programs of do this because I tell you to do this, when they should be doing more of a, okay, here's what we're going to do, here's why we're going to do it, and here's why it's important to you. At my heart, I'm a servant leader, which means that I want to see the people that whether it's my clients or my employees or whatever, I want to see them succeed. And that's the way that you have to approach this with your clients is you want them to succeed. You don't want them to go out of business. I know what that feels like. Okay. I know what it feels like to have your business ripped out from under you for something for no fault of yours. You don't want them to go through that because it again, the downstream effects of people losing their job and such is it's horrible to think about, especially in today's economy. So you don't want to be the stern father who sits down and says, grump, 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 grump. You want to be the kindly uncle that sits down and says, here's what we're going to do. Here's why we're going to do it. Here's the risk that this mitigates. And here's how we're going to train your people and make them understand that this is not a IT problem. This is not a leadership problem. It's really not even a problem. This is just a thing that we do to keep the business going.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and when that's easier said than done, but I think that it's a lot easier in a small business than I would say in a large business because you're trying to change the culture, right? However, I have come into many of small businesses that say, well, this is what we've done for the last 20 years. Why do we need to change and do anything else? And I like to say to them, please back me up if you agree with this, that business is not the same as 20 years ago. The world is not the same as 20 years ago. You can't bring in those kind of mentalities into the new world. I think that those people that do are one of the first people to get compromised.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you very, very much. I mean, the mom and pop, the 10-person mom and pop shop that has a laptop and a CNC machine thinks that they're doing business the same way they did business, like you said, 10 years ago, but they're not. And I think that one of two of the best stories that we have in our toolkit is, first of all, the very famous Target break-in from
Yeah.
how long ago is that now?
That was 2013,
Yeah,
2013.
wow.
Mhm.
Really? Okay, let
Yeah, a
me get
long
my
time ago.
cane. Let me get my cane and my walking stick. But, they breached, the bad guys breached, Target, not through a Target system, but through an HVAC system.
Yes.
And then the second, example to give them is, and I still don't think we know the name of the, casino, but there was a casino that was breached and compromised through an open Bluetooth connection in their aquarium.
Wow, yes. Yeah,
And
I heard about that.
it was and so with these little, SMBs, they're like, "Oh, we're doing business same way we did." No, you're connected. Somehow you are connected. If and I'll go back to the CNC shop. You're getting those plans somehow. You probably are not getting those plans on a rolled up blueprint anymore. You're probably getting them emailed to you or sent to you, which means you have to have a connection, which means you have an entry point. So, yeah, it's not the same world as your dad set up the shop in.
Yes, exactly. What do you say to clients that are just completely, this is just not them, this is not what they do? How do you, how do you get them to make the right decisions?
First of all, you got to convince them that they're not in this alone. There are folks like you and I who are here to genuinely help, that, yeah, we have to make a living, but I think that there is a way to make a living and help people and, not be a full-fledged charity, of course. And I really think that maybe it's time for some interesting thought leadership by the MSPs and such around how do we do this? Because I mean, let's face it, Nick. If you are responding to a cyber breach, what are you having to push off? What are you having to push off to the side for your other customers? Right? All of a sudden, it's just like if you have a cut on your body, your immune system just pushes everything towards that cut and says, "We have to fix this. We have to fix this right now." And everything else kind of, goes by the wayside. When you're fighting an infection, you're tired because that's where all your energy's going. So for people like us, a slow and steady, it's almost a never-ending cycle of remediation is a lot better for everybody's business than these spikes of a friend of mine was in the submarine service. And he said submarine service is very simple. It's 59 minutes of boredom and 1 minute of terror. And
Yeah.
in cyber, boredom is wonderful. Boring is
Yes.
great. It is, we as cyber professionals, we love to come into our office in the morning, scratch the dog, sit down with our coffee, read our newsletters, check out our Reddit channels and our Discords and all that other stuff. That is how we service our customers. And then we get around to them and we say, okay, well, no, we don't get around to them. That was a horrible phrase.
Yeah.
But we turn our attention to them and say, okay, how are we going to improve your life today? How are we going to let you sleep better at night? And really, that's the focus that we have.
Yes. I think this has been a great conversation. There's a little bit more that I wanted to keep talking about, and it's specifically around the technical aspect of it. When you're recommending technical things and a client is just not understanding what needs to happen. I've had this lot before where they understand the concept, but they don't understand how the technical solution is going to fit their problem. What is in that situation, what is your advice to the client?
My first piece of advice is go out and talk to Nick because you want him to take care of the technical side of the house. Take it off their plate. Explain it to them, but take it off their plate. And think about this. Everyone that we talk to, they go home and they sit down to an internet connection, a cable TV connection, probably a Wi-Fi, and you ask them, okay, when's the last time you configured the firewall that's in your, here we have Spectrum. I don't know who you have down in Florida, but who configured the firewall in that Spectrum router? And they're like, I have no idea. Right. But are you protected? I don't know. Well, you probably are because that ships with the device. And so that's the kind of thing that we've got to get going in the small and medium-sized businessman's mind is this is not what you do for a living. This is what I do for a living. This is what
I
folks
like that.
like me do for a living. And so, and again, the dollar signs are going to creep into into their brain. It doesn't matter who does the work. You're going to pay for it. Now,
Mhm.
you can pay and were you the one that told me this story? Or was it someone else that they went into a moderately sized business and their IT department was literally a guy named Joe who worked
Mhm.
part-time, semi-retired, and he just knew something about computers. And so they said, "You are our IT department." Well, you're paying him. The problem is that if he and I'm sure Joe is a great guy, whoever the Joe is in your life. But you're going to pay for him twice. You're going to pay him to do the job, not do it right, and then you're going to pay when you get breached.
Mhm.
So keep Joe. I mean, you need somebody who knows how to push the on off button around the office, but get somebody who does this every day.
When I'm talking to clients about this and I'm trying to get them to understand that they have these sort of these problems and these issues, and we're trying to bring them to the technical solution. I find that they're a lot of the times they just want us to handle it. They just want us to go and take it on and then come back and tell them it's done. And I like that as a I like that as a client. I can go and do that sort of stuff. But it's also comes back to making sure that the client is well informed that of what you're doing on their systems, so that you were saying before that there had been someone that was just named Joe, and they had there was nothing that there was just one person that could do it. Well, I've been coming to companies where there is no IT person. It was none at all. And you have to have I have to have at least have someone that is willing to do the work in the company to be there on the boots on ground to be able to perform it. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of small business owners is that they don't see the fact that they actually need someone in-house to do it part-time, whatever it may be, but you can't just push all of your IT operations, just like you can't push all of your payroll off to a payroll company and just say, "That's it. That you have it now." You can't do that because you still have to make sure it's still on you. It's still on you. It's your real responsibility that the payroll is getting out. Same thing with IT. It's still on the business owner's responsibility to make sure that their IT is up to par. But what I see a lot of these people doing is just farming it out to some third party, maybe an overseas or something like that, and having no follow up, having no actionable and control over the situation. So when things go awry, they have no idea what to do about it, and they're still stuck in the exact same situation that they were before. But like you said, now double paying. They're paying for the service and they're paying for someone else to come in and figure it out when it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think that there's also a happy medium that can be found there. Like I live in the growing town of Spring Hill, Tennessee. We're about 40 minutes south of Nashville. And I know that there are at least just in Spring Hill, there are at least 4 people who offer IT services. And it's not the kind of service, a set it or forget it thing. They actually go around and visit the office. They say,
Yes.
"Okay, Nick, I'm gonna your time slot for me is Tuesday at 1 o'clock." And every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, this person shows up and reads the logs. They collect the events. They walk around and they say, "Hey, wait a minute, what's that USB stick sitting on your desk? What are you doing there?" And it's not that expensive, right? Let's say that you pay that individual $125 an hour, right? And everybody says, "Oh, that's so much." Now remember that individual is paying for their own health care. They don't get vacation. They don't get sick leave. They get sick. They don't get sick leave. They've got to pay for all that. So that person is probably actually putting, less than $70 an hour in their own pocket.
Yeah.
But they come around and you get that individualized service on a regular basis, probably for a little bit more. You can get an on-call thing, and you can even set it up. A lot of these folks that I know of, they set it up not on an hourly basis, but on a retainer basis. They say, "Okay, you're $800 a month." I'll just throw that number out there. That gets you
Mhm.
4 visits and 3 after-hour calls. And if you don't use the 3 after-hour calls, great, you don't get a refund, but, at least you have that kind of flexibility. It's not that difficult to do or to find.
Mhm. Yes. And that's that's what I wanted to I want to rephrase my earlier statement. Not saying someone you need it in house, as in someone you need to hire specifically and take on that W-2 and all that sort of stuff. What I meant is in house. I meant someone to be literally in your house, like not in your in on site with you. Someone to like you were saying to actually walk around the office and do the things you need to do. If you're a remote company, then that means that someone's going to meet with you and your team on a regular basis and understand what the team is up to and what they're doing. It, we do that monthly with our clients. where every month I sit down with them and I'm say, "What's going on? What's new?" And they tell me about the new thing that they've been doing, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, "Well, have you thought about this, and this situation a lot with those
Yeah.
things?" And it's because when you're talking about IT services, IT is your entire company, is your entire business nowadays. It doesn't matter if you're a florist or a construction worker. Your IT is your business now. Like, everything runs on IT. You can't get a contract signed without an email address. But most likely you can't you know get payments done without online banking of some form. So when you're thinking about that, they need to start you need to start these small to medium businesses need to realize that, yeah, you are an accountant, you are a thing, but what you are, everyone, like, I was in the military, so we have sayings in the military, like, everyone's a rifleman, everyone's a medic, everyone's a firefighter, because we all have that. No matter what your job is day to day, at the end of the day, if that situation were to occur, that's where you're going to be. So at the end of the day, if you're a florist, at the end of the day, you have to take in online sales to do business. That's how it works today. I don't know a florist today that doesn't take online business.
Right. Right.
And
And even with, like you said, you're going to have online banking, right? Very few people that I know of, unless they need the social interaction, very few people I know go down to the bank and deposit a check because they don't have a check to deposit. Okay, my business bank takes a Zelle of all things. It's like, when did that get mainstream? So what little small businesses like that need to be careful of is somebody, wiggling their way into your system and dropping, like I said before, a leave behind. You and I
yes,
call them advanced persistent threats, or APTs. And all that APT has to do is sit there and wait for you to go to your bank. And it's constantly screen scraping. It's going, where are they now? What URL are they going to? They're going to a bank. And then they key log what you put in, which has nothing to do with what appears on the screen. And bang, there goes your bank account. And that's the kind of stuff you got to pay attention to. And one of the things that I try to do with clients is look at what is it that you're already paying for. We get back to the whole thing of cybersecurity is so expensive. I had one client that had that they were paying for Microsoft 365, and they were paying for Symantec, and they were paying for this, and they were paying for that. It's like, why are you double booking yourself or billing yourself? Now, I will admit that if you had told me 6 years ago that Microsoft Defender was a serious product, I would have laughed at you.
hmm
But
yeah,
now it's on the drop-down list for cyber insurance. Pick your
yeah.
EDR. There's
hmm
Defender. So, don't nickel and dime yourself to death. Look at what it is you're paying for and make it easier. And M365 for the business suite, that's come down in price. That is getting actually affordable for people.
All software right now is super cheap I remember 10 years ago when I started in cybersecurity, you couldn't get into an endpoint solution for under $25 an endpoint. And now they're 2 or $3, $4. They're incredibly cheap. And it just goes to show that cybersecurity doesn't have to be cheap. You can make it expensive like anything else. Like you were saying, if you double bill yourself for no reason. Now, I am a component of having multiple security tools for layers of security, but that's not. I'm not saying go and buy the same tool 3 times and just that's not 3 layers. That's 1 layer 3 times.
Right, right. You get absolutely no benefit out of having 3 EDRs on each endpoint. In fact,
Yeah.
they will start to fight with each other.
Well, yes, I've locked computers up that way.
Yeah. Now it's like you said, it's a whole different ball of wax. If you have an enterprise where you've got a server closet and you've got, your on-prem stuff there, yeah, you put malware bytes, and I'm just pulling names out of the cloud right now. You put malware bytes on your servers, you put Defender on your endpoints, whatever you want to put in between, like if you've got some sort of a detonation chamber or something like that, You put something different in there, and so you've got the same threat being looked at 2 or 3 different ways. That's not paying for the same thing 3 times, as you just said. That's paying for 3 different layers of defense. And,
Mhm.
again, the money involved. What is the money involved in protecting yourself against the money involved of going out of business? And
Exactly.
I, because I wanna circle back around real quick. A lot of these businesses don't take into account reputational risk. As we said at the top of the podcast, there's no hiding these things anymore. And if you get popped, if your business gets popped, folks are going to know about it, and it's going to influence whether or not they want to do business with you. Why should they trust you if you're not paying attention to your own business? So why do I trust you with my business if you can't trust you with your business?
Yes. Yeah, it it just I just don't it's difficult to try and explain this sometimes to clients because they're just so in their head about it, and they're so worried about their business, but it's weird because they worry about their business so much, yet they don't see the forest through the trees, and they they make silly mistakes on I mean, they wouldn't shake a stick at if they had a brick and mortar business of getting security cameras. That's money, that's costing money and things like that, and you could do it wrong in the same way. You can be I was just actually I was just in on a cyber stalking case where, this ex was stalking his, ex-girlfriend through the Amazon Alexa, and so you can there are a lot of other ways that they could get at you more than just these sort of things, and it's they're going to find ways in that you don't recognize. So you need to have other people like ourselves reviewing that stuff and going, "Hey, that's not right. That's you shouldn't be that shouldn't be happening." Or you know what I mean? Like if you're continually getting fraudulent bank transactions and you don't know where it's coming from, that's a problem. It's most likely cyber related.
Right. Yes, that's an interesting point, is that a lot of these small businesses, especially the smalls, they don't have the experience, and that's really what it comes down to. They don't have the experience of looking at the symptom and saying, "Here's the problem." And I think that your example right there is perfect in that why do we keep losing $10 a month to these odd charges or these odd withdrawals? Well, it's because somebody has your username and password. So why don't we change those things? Why don't we enroll you in multi-factor authentication? Why don't we do that? And I would like to address some of the other folks who may be listening to this. If you're not if you are a financial institution or something like that, and you're not offering multi-factor authentication, please use the exit door. Just get out.
Yes.
MFA is another one of those things, Nick, that has become ubiquitous and practically free.
Mhm.
And there's no reason, I think it was NIST, was it NIST or CISA, that basically made the statement, if everybody used MFA, we could drop to statistically 0 breaches. And I was like,
Yes.
that's a bold statement, but okay, we'll go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I would push back a little bit on that. I think that's where they're giving a caveat of statistically 0
Mhm.
because I definitely there's ways around it. I mean,
Sure.
there's ways around of everything. I've had instances where clients have multi-factor authentication on, but the attack goes through the browser first, and they do browser session takeover, and that bypasses MFA because the MFA has already been established by
Mhm.
that browser.
Well, between things like that and not patching. Ha
Yes.
I don't know if every morning I listen to, that pla Sands, that's it.
Mm,
The Sands podcast, and 3 times a week, Johannes comes on and he's like, "Well, somebody else has been breached because they didn't patch blah," whatever blah is. 3
yep.
at least 3 times a week. So
Yes. And yeah, and that comes down to having again, goes back to having someone come in to your business and be a part of the business to run the IT. not just be an external party that's looking at the business through the window. You're not looking at the business through the window, you're not gonna understand those aspects of those risks of crap. Yeah, they are utilizing this process, or this process is not as is very vulnerable. Or they're doing things and they're not or they're seeing things and not informing you about them. I do that. I have that all the time. They don't tell you about it, about the actual small details that are coming up.
And you know what? That's another great point, Nick, is that it's an overused phrase, but if you see something, say something, right? We've all heard
Mhm.
that. We're probably all tired of it and that sort of thing. We have to take away the stigma of, okay, I clicked the button and I got phished, right? That is not an opportunity to, tap somebody on the forehead and say, you bad, and go
Mhm.
sit in the corner. That is an opportunity to educate not one person, don't shame them, but
Yes.
use it as an educational opportunity of, XYZ. I was just I was just talking to a gentleman who, very intelligent, very smart, and I was relating to him that a couple days ago I had a an ingenious phishing attempt. I think it was by accident. I had logged into a banking account and that required MFA through a one-time password. And about 3 hours later, while I was up at the grocery store, I get this text saying, "Oh, here's your one-time password. If you didn't want it, dial this number." The chain of events, and again, I'm sure it was all coincidental, that this message was spoofing the financial institution that I logged into on the day that I logged into it. Just a few hours later, I was like, that's really coincidental. And I was talking to somebody about it. He's like, "Did you call the number?" I was like, "Well, no, of course not." He's like, "Well, I did." I was like, "No, no, 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 don't call that number. You go to your financial institution, you call that number." He's like, "Yeah," and he said that they walked him to the point where they were about to give him instructions on how to create a what they call a crypto locker. "Oh,
Mhm.
you're the only one that'll have access to your funds and everything else." He was like, all of a sudden it clicked in, "Wait, I've seen this movie." And he finally hung up on him, but by the time he hung up on him, they knew that he had crypto in institution A, B, and C. He had given them that information. So it happens to the smartest people. So you can't sit there and when, Sally in accounting clicks on the link, man, you can't take her out and shame her. You really can't. You've gotta you gotta first calm them down, and second, you've gotta reinforce their education and reinforce your culture.
Yes, and and I'll say this one last thing before we wrap up. I think that that has partially been the fault of cybersecurity professionals, specifically red teams in our industry that like to utilize shaming as a way of teaching. And I don't think that's a proper way of teaching anything. So I say this with like QR codes, right? Every time I go to a security conference, it's the only place in the world where QR codes are considered evil. Like no one wants to actually use them. Everywhere else, though, is QR. There was I got Burger King last night. There's a QR code on the bag of Burger King. Like it's everywhere. You're not gonna get around them. So having a QR code as a security company, having a QR code that goes to a fake shaming page, you know what I mean? Like, shame on you, you use this QR code and you thought it was something else. That doesn't make the point that they're trying to make. Yes, they shouldn't have scanned this random QR code, but there are QR codes literally everywhere in our lives, and we have to use them. So associating that with negativity just makes it harder for everyone else.
Yeah, well, dude, I was at a security conference about 3 weeks ago. Everybody
Mhm,
had a QR code up. Everybody. And it was even you checked in with a QR code. You
mhm.
nobody had a paper brochure. They had a QR code. And I remember, what was it, about 7 years ago? There was a campaign to all but squash the QR code, that
Yeah.
it was being, I think that we all remember that there was a hacker group that was just going around and they had stickers and they'd put a sticker on a light pole and see how many people they could catch. Now, here, like you said, you can't order in a restaurant without a QR code.
Yes. So, yeah, so th educating them that all QR codes are bad is not gonna work. So if you're another IT professional out there and you're saying all QR codes are bad, you are a zealot screaming into the dark. No one's going to listen to you. It's just not the case. Well, Rich, this has been a really fantastic podcast. We had a really great conversation. Lots of cool stuff being talked about. I really thank you for coming on. I want to have you say your last parting words and how people can connect with you.
How can people connect with me? The easiest way is to go to my website, https doink black black the Pridwin ThePrywden.com. There's a book me link on there, and there's a phone number, and I think my email address is on there. And I think that my parting words to folks is that frontline defense is not that hard and it's not that expensive. You can be fairly secure with the investment of about an hour a month.
Mhm.
And just if you don't know, reach out. There are people like Nick and I who are here to genuinely help, and we're not going to charge you a third mortgage because everybody has two now, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Rich. Well, thank you so much for hopping on today. Thanks everyone for joining. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye, Nick.